Welcome to this prompt engineering section of the course, and I'm really excited about teaching you about prompt engineering because it really enhances your experience with these language AI models that we're going to cover. And basically, if you simplify prompt engineering, it's just a technique of being able to craft the perfect prompt to get a better performance out of these language models. So ChatGPT is the language model that we're going to have to prompt correctly. Bard is one, Bing is one. When we get to image generation, Midjourney is one, DALL-E is one. So all those require a text prompt to get the best output out of them. I asked one of the models to tell me the best example for prompt engineering. And it basically said, if you ask a smart friend a question and you keep that question vague, you're going to get kind of a vague response, right? It's not going to be that useful. So with prompting, it's telling me to always try to be more clear and more focused and specific with my question, and then I'll get a much better answer that will be more helpful. And we'll do a ton of examples here, but the fundamental is basically instead of saying, tell me about dogs, right? That doesn't really know which direction you want to go. So it's probably going to give you something that's not useful, but you could give us something way more specific. What are the different breeds of dogs, for example? Give me a list. Or how do I train my new dog, my puppy, right? You're gonna get a very specific result if you ask a very specific question. So sort of in a nutshell, prompt engineering is just the art of asking the right question to get the right answer from these language models. And we're gonna use ChatGPT here for our examples. So let me share the 7 best practices with these effective prompt engineering. And this is gonna be the longest section of the course because I wanna give you a ton of different resources, ton of different examples for the perfect prompts that you need in specific situation. So for our list, number 1, and the most important, is to be specific. If you ask a vague question, you're just gonna get a vague answer. You have to go back and forth a lot. So the more detail you provide up front, the better these models, ChatGPT included, they're going to give you a much better results. Second is state your intent. So if you actually tell it and be specific about why you're asking a question, it's going to know better how to craft that answer. For example, instead of asking, how does the solar system work? I could say more specifically, I'm trying to help my 5th grade son with his science homework. Can you please explain to me how the solar system works in a simple way for a 5th grader? Right? Then it's going to have much better context. It's going to explain it to me in a way where I could just turn that around and explain to my son, right? Rather than just giving me some generic answer that is not specific to what I need. So stating your intent is really key. You'll find it really useful. Number 3 is using the correct spelling and grammar. Even though these type of models do have spell check built into them, sometimes I notice when the grammar and spelling is wrong, it sends it to the entirely wrong direction. And it doesn't take much because in the prompt, it's gonna have a spell check. You right click, fix the spell, do your best with the grammar. It's gonna fix most of your issues. But when you give it really clear and correct prompts in this way, it usually responds a lot better and doesn't take much effort. Number 4 is giving it the direction for output format. So this basically means if you don't say anything in the type of output you want, it's just gonna do whatever it thinks it should do. But you could actually ask for a numbered list. You could ask for a list of steps in bullet points. You could ask for just 1 paragraph or 1,000 words or just 1 sentence or a table format. All those are basically different ways to ask it to output something in a very specific format. When you ask it that, it just does it the first time around. If you don't, it might output things in a numbered list, and that's not really what you wanted. You wanted a table instead. So make sure you be very specific on what kind of output you want in your prompt. Again, we're gonna put all these together too in very specific examples as we go. Number 5 in the world of prompt engineering is actually asking the follow-up questions, right? Even if you give it the perfect prompt, you will have to follow up. That's the whole point of these type of things, is knowing how to follow up. So if the response wasn't what you expected the first time, you could make sure you ask a follow-up question to clarify. We're gonna have a ton of examples on how to do this because usually the first time around is not gonna be the perfect answer, even if you give it the perfect prompt. So we'll refine that as we go. Number 6 is you need to experiment with different types of phrasing. So if you're not getting the response you want, kind of start over with a different way. Don't get frustrated because sometimes they can be frustrating, but the model might understand a different type of phrasing better than the first type of phrasing you tried out. And we'll give you some examples as we go with that. And number 7, and lastly, is prompt for fact checking too. So a lot of times especially if you're using things like math or information that requires web access, but it doesn't have web access. You need to make sure the model could provide you sources or fact check the information. So a lot of these models already do that, but I like to follow up. So for example, I could say, can you fact check the statement? Or can you fact check what you just gave me and provide resources? This is a really good way to make sure I'm not just copy and pasting. As I mentioned in the beginning, sometimes these models hallucinate and give you an answer that seems correct, but if you don't know much about that topic, you may miss that. So asking it to fact check its own work, I know especially with math related things or putting charts together with numbers, sometimes it just does the math wrong. So asking it to fact check or correctly check its own work, you're gonna get better results. And again, something we're gonna experiment with as we go.